Chapter 3 is the long-awaited sequel to Poppy Playtime, and while we can only speculate what the chapter will be about, the developers have given us 3 different teasers so far, giving us clues as to what Chapter 3 is going to contain. The original one from back in August, the Huggy Wuggy escape tape, and most recently, the Kissy Missy relocation tape that you've probably already seen. And today I wanted to take a deeper look at all of them to try and connect the dots and find out what they all mean for the long-awaited Chapter 3 that we've been waiting for forever now. Like the video if you're excited, and as a reward, here's my silly cat. Okay, so as a mini recap of the 3 teasers we have so far, first there's the Chapter 3 teaser, which is simply a shot of a few dead toys. Plus, we're shown this new mask item while Elliot Ludwig, the founder of Playtime Co, tells us about the Play Care, the confirmed Chapter 3 location that we crash into at the end of Chapter 2. The second teaser for Chapter 3 details Huggy Wuggy himself sneaking outside of the factory to then go on a rampage, killing a bunch of people before he is found and caught outside of this home. Then finally, there's the most recent Kissy Missy tape, which details an employee guide on how to transport the giant toys from Storage B and then move them across the train, while a mystery voice tells us to do the opposite before randomly Kissy Missy is freed and all of the employees are killed. Now, starting with the original Chapter 3 teaser, breaking it down is probably the easiest one to understand. First, we see a dead Huggy, a dead Mommy, then finally a dead Bron before a pile of dead toys are seen as the shot goes to the now infamous gas mask. Now, what's interesting about this teaser is that the gas mask is clearly for something important in the Play Care since it's being shown in the setting, and in fact in the thumbnail we could see some sort of red gas clearly being used as a little hint proving that this in fact is true. But what is this red gas, you may ask? Well, while we don't know for sure, it seems like it has to have something to do with none other than the poppy flower, because first off, it's red, which has sort of always been symbolism for poppy flowers throughout the game, but also throughout the chapters the poppy flower is seen as having some sort of supernatural effects in the factory, with them first creating, of course, Poppy Playtime, who is made of poppy flowers, and then they tested dead rats using the poppies to see what it would do and see if it would bring them to life. And while the experiment was a failure, they then said in the exact paper that they still believe in the potential of the poppy flower. Its unusual properties lead me to believe that the proper mixture and procedure could have life-altering properties. Now, as for its effects on the game itself, it seems like at some point the poppy flower and its gas were somehow manipulated to be used during experimentation in the Play Care, since we, for starters, know that the toys were somehow created by experimenting on orphans through the Bigger Bodies initiative, and also because we know the Play Care location is where these children were being experimented on after being tested for their strengths and weaknesses in the game station, based on logs found throughout the game where they were literally testing children. Going back to the teaser, the gas mask's purpose is still unknown, but it's most likely going to be some sort of new item to protect us from all the poppy gas hiding in the Play Care. But moving on to the Huggy Wuggy tape, this is where things start to get a bit vague. For starters, we see Huggy Wuggy escape the factory, and then for the first time ever, we get to see him in the wild, killing not only multiple people and employees, as of course we'd expect, but also animals in the wild, suggesting he was not just out to kill people, but was on a complete rampage and was killing anything that moved. We can also theorize that this Huggy could be the same Huggy Wuggy we see in Chapter 1 based on their size comparisons being the same, and also the fact that he has this unique blue bow tie which matches Huggy's appearance in Chapter 1. However, both are different from the yellow bow tie that Huggy normally wears in his cartoon depiction, showing that there was something unique about these two specimens. After Huggy had ran for miles, at about 3 a.m. we suddenly randomly saw him standing still right in front of this house that has all of its lights conveniently turned off except for this one over here. A really interesting detail to say the least, which is where that tape ends. Now, its relation to Chapter 3 is incredibly difficult to decipher, but for now it mostly reestablishes to us that Huggy Wuggy and most of the monsters in the factory are vicious, violent beings who, when given the chance, will kill and destroy anything in their sight, only excluding this house for whatever reason. Which transitions us well into the last teaser, being the most recent Kissy Missy one, where we see a bunch of employees go down into Storage B, the same place that the character Patty Hall was sent to in Chapter 2 before mysteriously disappearing. But regardless, in this room, as YouTuber Tiriko would point out, Kissy Missy is clearly seen moving around in the dark. However, when the lights turn on, we see her completely still, which is incredibly similar to what we see from Huggy in Chapter 1, and it also proves to us that Kissy Missy was once an orphan in the factory, since, as we mentioned before, they trained the children for experimentation in the game station location we play in Chapter 2, testing skills like their memory and musical memory, their reflexes in Wacka Wuggy, and finally mainly their ability to stand still in statues. It's a weird thing to include until you consider that the Bigger Bodies initiative, as said in Project Playtime, was the initiative that turned all the toys into real employees to save money on workers, and also to stop people like Rowan Stoll from snitching about the secrets that they saw while working there. And interestingly enough, the statues game is all about training the children to move when the lights are off to run from PJ Pugapillar, and to freeze when the lights are turned on. Or in a practical case, teaching the monsters to move whenever it's dark in the factory, but to freeze when an employee who maybe didn't know about them entered the room and turned the lights on, causing them to freeze in place and look like statues, the name of the game where they were testing the children on. But outside of that little tangent, Kissy Missy is then guided onto a train that is headed directly to the Playcare location. And after being on her way, suddenly things started to change. As suddenly on the train, this Playtime Co box starts to move as if something was hiding beneath it, before we then see Kissy Missy looking at whatever that thing is directly right in front of her, where the tape then ends at the Playcare location with blood splattered everywhere and Kissy Missy sitting there nice and safe. Now, I've theorized about this tape before and said that this being that clearly was hiding underneath this box and saved Kissy at the end of the tape was none other than the prototype Experiment 1006. However, thinking more realistically, this teaser is meant to tease Chapter 3, and so honestly, it seems more likely that the person who killed all the employees is actually probably some sort of new monster who's going to show up in the third chapter. I mean, we know for a fact that Kissy Missy didn't kill these employees because it's emphasized in Chapter 2 and in this tape that she's friendly since she never moves. However, whoever it was that saved Kissy Missy from the employees in the Playcare clearly did, which is something I believe we will end up seeing and meeting inside of Chapter 3. But that's a quick breakdown of all three of the old Chapter 3 teasers. However, how do all these tapes tie together and how do they relate to Chapter 3 and its contents? Because after all, these teasers are for Chapter 3, so they have to have some sort of correlation. Well, here's my theory. The first tape's meaning is pretty obvious. It's showing us the gas mask, which will be a new item in the game, but tying it into the other two tapes is where things start to get interesting. So the first Huggy Wuggy tape seems to be showing us that Huggy Wuggy is a bad guy. Yes, guys, it's a breakthrough discovery. I'll take your applause and subscriptions. I know it's impressive. But what's important about this is that in the Kissy Missy tape, we see that she is good and is not willing to even defend herself from being dragged all the way to the Playcare to have who knows what happened to her when she is clearly able to, judged by her massive size. But what's most important about this clip is that in the end, some unknown force jumps out by the Playcare and kills all the employees before they are able to come and take Kissy to her doom, brutally murdering tons of the employees, sure, but also saving Kissy Missy from whatever fate lies in the Playcare that we are yet to know. And we also see this character shift at the end of the Huggy tape as well, where we see Huggy for a few seconds sitting outside of some sort of home for seemingly no reason. There's a light on showing someone was home and was probably looking at him, but yet he doesn't attack the home and rather just stands there before he is caught by the employees. It seems clear to me what both of these VHS tapes are for. It's a cycle of yin and yang where there's evil and good, but both are required for each other to coexist in the factory. We see Huggy show mercy to whoever these people are who live in the home, albeit his old family or something of some sorts. It's still a bit blurry. But we then see Kissy Missy, the friendly one, saved through violence of some sort, setting her free. And I think that these tapes are trying to tell us that this chapter is going to go into a lot more depth on not just what happened to all the employees in the factory itself, but also what happened to the orphans that we know from the first teaser were brought into Playcare to eventually be turned into toys. And we will hopefully get to see and learn why toys such as Kissy Missy are friendly and help out the player in the game, along with getting to, of course, see some of the more violent ones such as Huggy Wuggy again, or even maybe this mysterious character who saved Kissy in the original VHS. Clearly, these are just teasers, so it's way too early to say any specifics like who the new main antagonist is going to be or what the game is actually going to look like, but these VHS teasers almost feel like some sort of origin stories for these characters who we've already met throughout the game, showing us that there are real and visible personalities around these toys and they can be both good and bad when they need to. They aren't just heartless monsters who do anything but kill in the factory like what we've seen throughout the game's release. release, but rather they are real souls with human beings inside of them that have morals and purposes to exist. They were simply just people who were manipulated in the play care at some point to be turned into these beings, which would precisely explain why Kissy Missy was saved by this mysterious creature while she was taken to that exact place. And it also, for the first time, really brings up a question only theorized about for a while now. Do the monsters attack us because they are the evil villains in the factory, or is there something more to the story? The player themselves is a silent protagonist who barely ever has any importance to the story, and their literal player model is a yellow statue. So clearly they aren't going to be the most in-depth character in the game with some sort of long and deep story or something like that. But there's only one concrete detail about the player that the developers reinstate multiple times throughout the game, and it's that they were a former employee of Playtime Co, part of the same exact group who were responsible for creating all of these monsters from the orphans, and would explain quite precisely why the monsters go so crazy whenever they see them inside of the factory. It's an idea I brought up before, but with these new teasers, it seems to make more sense than ever, and this ties up all of the teasers into Chapter 3 incredibly well. Now, as for what is in the play care or what Chapter 3 will look like gameplay-wise, well, we don't really know, but here's a video I made breaking down their most recent Q&A that answers some of these questions. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't like with this theory in the comments below, and peace.